Okay, everyone, welcome to this episode of Freedom Hub's Working Group. I'm your host, Jeff Cantor, along with my co-host, Charles Froman. We're sponsored by the Freedom Hub, which is located at your-mp.com, and you will see it is the Disruptors Intersection. We are also running another show also about freedom related to your health. So it's pertinent with today as well, but you'll certainly appreciate that also. And again, most importantly, we want to direct you to the site. Why? Because there's a lot of resources there. We'll take a quick diversion. When you get to the site, you'll see a lot of drop downs, some interesting stuff, and we keep adding to them. Under the home, you'll see there's the webinar tab, and then let's jump ahead to the continuing the conversation, because after we have the webinar, you want to maybe connect with the speaker, and this is where you're going to be able to do so. We feature everyone that's spoken, and this is your chance to connect with them on a more personal level, get involved with their project, whatever it might be. And then also under the freedom one, this is where we feature under Fighting for Freedom the various organizations that are actually fighting for our freedom. So this is a place for you to learn about them and connect as well. And then in terms of today, when you're under here and you see the webinar tab, brings you over here and you'll see the two different webinars described, the one that we have at the current slot and the one that's for in the 7 evening slot. And if you scroll a little further down, you'll see who's coming up so you can plan ahead. And then here's the most important part when you get down here. These are the links to the recorded episodes. So by the weekend, they're all posted. This is your chance to come back if you've missed it or share with others. And if you like what you've heard, then you can go back to the continuing the conversation and connect with that speaker. So on that note, let's see what we're going to be talking about today, because I think it's an interesting and exciting topic, if I'm not mistaken. So Charles, why don't you jump in?
Gladly, Jeff, and welcome, Yvette.
Thank you.
Yvette is someone I know from the health freedom movement, particularly in Virginia. And as you can see, we do have Robert F. Kennedy's counsel tonight at 7 o'clock on a weekly health webinar, Mary Holland, to talk about the scary mandates of experimental shots that are going to threaten our access to shopping, working, learning, travel. And so Yvette did really well in Richmond, Virginia, with health freedom. There were efforts to repeal the religious exemption and other bills over the years. And Yvette really wanted to know why it was so difficult for health freedom activists to make progress. And she reached out to experts who were having success out of what's called a sovereignty movement or empowerment movement, natural law. There's a lot of names for it, a lot of different schools of thought, how to reclaim your liberty, which is something that you can do because of the great areas of the laws and it's very complex. And for those brilliant activists who can find a way through this mess to insist on their freedom, they have something to tell us. And a lot of folks are curious about the sovereignty movement and other ways it's called, on how it can actually work. And it does work for a lot of people, but there are pitfalls. It's like anything else. It takes practice and study to learn it. And so Yvette is probably the best person to introduce us to this. She is an educator in natural law and independence. And so I'm excited, Jeff, to get an intro on this. She did learn it early from a fellow libertarian that Jeff and I have, Michael Badnarik, a former libertarian presidential candidate from 2004. So there are some high profile activists who have gone down this route and have had success. Jeff, so let's hear what's going on.
Okay, fantastic. All right, I'm dropping the screen here, Yvette, and giving you access.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we're going to learn about sovereignty, what it means, and why it's so important. I want to start off by thanking Jeff and Charles for inviting me to speak, and to all of you for joining us today. I ask that you hear this presentation with an open mind and try to set aside any preconceived notions. I may offend some because it may challenge how you see things or how you do things. Went back to the end. Okay. So I am your presenter today, Yvette Bronx. I'm wife, mother of 6, currently homeschooling 2. I've been an activist for a long time, but formally for about 10 years. I'm a retired lactation consultant and birth doula. I started in the health freedom movement, like Charles said, and then I realized that issues are never the problem. They are symptoms to a deeply rooted systemic problem. So I had to unlearn all the lies taught to me and learn truth. Now I teach others in the hope that we can salvage this world together. At the very least, we can salvage the republic. So the information that I will be presenting is not new information, for it is eternal truths. However, it is the most important information that you will need to receive and understand in order to truly fight for liberty. Without a firm foundation in these truths, you will never be able to find a solution to the madness that's occurring today. I'm going to try to give you a 10-hour presentation in 30 minutes. So there is no way that I can cover all the material. My goal is to stir up enough curiosity in you that after this presentation, you will go and delve deeper. As a side note, I want to add that many of my slides are directly things that I will be speaking. I do this because I find that when people read along, they tend to absorb and retain the information better. So I want to begin with a quote by Samuel Adams that says, "The truth is, all might be free if they value freedom and defend it as they ought." I chose this quote because liberty comes at a cost. And part of that cost is something so valuable that many people have a hard time giving it up. It's time. Many don't want to invest in time and the time that it takes to read and learn and truly understand what it takes to defend their liberties. Most people want instant gratification, even if it takes a lot of work. They invest in what they believe is going to give them a quick outcome. Sometimes that looks like emailing a rep, serving someone an affidavit, or holding a sign in front of a governmental building. And I'm not going to go into why these things will not yield permanent liberty. That's another class. But hopefully, by the end of this presentation, you will see that those things, they're like taking painkillers to mask an illness that requires a complete body detox. Okay, so truth and natural law. In order to understand sovereignty, you must understand the laws of nature that are rooted in eternal truths. So this is where we are going to begin with natural law. Some have gotten offended when they hear me present natural law. They say it's too harsh, that I need to meet people where they're at. I've been accused of sounding zealous, religious, and dogmatic. The truth is harsh. It makes people not want to face it. Truth is belligerent by nature because it is in conflict with lies. So if someone is living a lie or believing in a lie, they take offense to truth and naturally they want to repel it. They want to run away from it. There is no other way to present truth but to be straightforward and frank. There is no meeting someone where they're at because there is no such thing as a half truth. Natural law is rooted in absolute truths, and thus it must be explained frankly. It exists whether someone believes in it or not. We're living in a society where people think that truth is subjective. Oh, if I believe it, then it must be true. If I feel like I'm a man, then I'm a man. If I feel like I'm a woman, then I'm a woman. There's your truth, their truth, our truth. No, that is a fallacy. That is a lie. True is objective. It is not based off of perception. So if I stated that 2 + 2 = 4, it is unlikely that anyone would accuse me of being zealous, religious, or dogmatic about that absolute truth. And it is because that law doesn't require a change in mentality or a change in behavior. Many do not want to hear that human behavior is bounded by law. People want to believe that they can do anything that they want as long as they don't get caught or as long as they don't have to face the consequences of that behavior. And this could be anything. This could be you choosing to send your child to public school. Just because you don't know how that school is affecting your child doesn't mean that it's not. And that's another class that I give on compulsory education. But just like there is no religious belief or dogma required in understanding mathematical principles, there is none required in understanding natural law. It is a law in the universe, and we are all bound by it, whether we like it or not. We have free will. We have the freedom to choose our behavior, but we do not have the freedom to be insulated from the consequences of our behavior. So let's get into natural law. Let's break it down. So natural means inherent, having a basis in nature, reality, and truth. It is not made or caused by humanity. It's not man-made. And law is an existing condition which is binding and immutable. It cannot be changed. So let's get into those two words, existing and binding. So existing means that it is present. It cannot just be ignored and expected that, oh, that doesn't make it true, and it's not going to have an effect. It's there, it's present. That's what makes it operational law. Binding means that it has an effect. It means that it doesn't matter whether you believe it has an effect. It doesn't matter whether you understand that it has an effect. It doesn't care. So people in their ego, they want to believe that nature cares about them individually, and that because of this, they can do whatever they want and nature will protect them. Like, oh, I put good karma out there, so nothing's going to happen to me. No, it doesn't work like that. The laws of nature have been put into motion, and it doesn't care for or about you. Of course, this is not to say that the creator of nature doesn't care for you, but we are talking about law, the laws of nature. So let me give you a scenario that I like to give, and I got this one from Mark Passio. Let's say that a couple decides to go on a picnic, like at a national park. They have their newly turned 2-year-old daughter with them. They set down their nice picnic basket and blanket down, and let's say 50 feet away, there's a pretty tall cliff. It's about 200 feet up, and at the bottom of the cliff, there are jagged rocks. Let's say that after a glass of wine, things get heated, the couple starts making out, and for a few seconds, they forget about their baby. She wanders off and gets to the edge of the cliff. Will gravity care if this beautiful little girl in her best Sunday dress goes over the edge of that cliff? Will gravity allow this beautiful child to go over the edge of that cliff? Yes. Yes, it will. And no, it does not care. Gravity isn't going to say, oh, this beautiful little girl doesn't understand my law. No, it's not going to say that, and she will die. Yes, she is innocent, even nescient, and yet this law will still have an effect. Natural law is the same way. It doesn't care whether you don't know. It doesn't care whether you are ignorant. It's in effect. It is binding and it is immutable. Nothing you can ever do can ever change it. It is in effect eternally because man didn't put it into effect. The creator of the universe did. And it doesn't matter whether you believe that or not. It just is. So here's one of my favorite guys, and here's one of my favorite quotes. It's, if a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. Ignorance does not and will never produce liberty. Liberty is gained through knowledge and action, proper action. Okay, so to sum it up, natural law. Natural law is a set of universal, inherent, objective, non-man-made, eternal, and immutable conditions which govern the consequences of behavior in those that have the capacity for understanding the difference between harmful and non-harmful behavior. So natural law only applies to us because we have the capacity to understand morality. And this is what is required: a worldwide common sense of understanding of true, objective morality and the laws that govern behavioral consequences. This is the only true solution to the current human condition of slavery. Yes, slavery, because we are not free, my friends. We have to ask permission for everything. Building a house, you need to pull a permit, and some guy needs to approve your work. You want to own property, you must pay the thing that we call government. You have to pay a tax for your own property. So is it really yours? You want to do something as personal and fundamental as getting married. You need to ask permission for that too. It's called a marriage license. Those are just basics that we have gotten used to yielding to. But now we are entering an entirely different form of slavery. And what's coming will shock many of you. But that's for another class. As long as humanity chooses to remain ignorant of the principles of natural law, it will remain enslaved. And that is by law. I'm not making this up. This is by universal cosmic law, by the laws of creation. All right. So natural law is all about the objective difference between right behavior and wrong behavior. Did you know that the true definition of common sense is knowing the difference between right and wrong? Right and wrong are complete opposites. These are diametric opposites that exist in nature. They are not constructs that exist in the human mind, no matter what you believe. So in the English language, we use the same word to convey the idea of correct and moral. We use the word right to communicate those two concepts. For example, what is 1 + 2? And if you said 3, I would say right, meaning you're correct. You gave me the correct answer. But we also use it to mean morality. For example, was stealing the money from Jim, was that right? Meaning, was it a moral behavior? So why would we do this? Why would we use the same word to mean those two things? That is because they are the same thing. They mean the same thing. Correct is truth. If it is correct, then it is moral. So right is correct. It is based in truth. It is moral, and it is in harmony with natural law because actions based in it do not result in harm to other sentient beings. Wrong is incorrect. It is not based in truth. It is immoral. It is in opposition to natural law because actions based in it result in harm to other sentient beings. So morality isn't about right versus left. It is about right versus wrong. All the other stuff is just a distraction. It's a way to keep you away from true knowledge because you're too busy fighting an enemy that you believe sits on the opposite side of your belief system. This is why you need to know the truth about right and wrong. If we are to choose between these two modalities of behavior, we need to know what they are. So what I just discussed with you leads to what is your right? Meaning, what do you have a right to do? And what you have a right to do is no different than what I have a right to do. What I'm telling you here is that every single human on this planet has the same exact rights. Not one person has one more right than another, and not one person has one less right than another human being. To think that anyone has more or less rights anywhere in the world at any time during history is a fallacy. It's a lie. It is a deception. Rights are universal and the exact same for every single human being. So these are examples of violations against natural rights. These are wrongdoings. So murder is taking without just cause the life of another, which does not belong to you. Assault is taking without just cause another's physical well-being, which does not belong to you. Rape is taking another's free will to sexual consent, which does not belong to you. Theft is taking property which does not belong to you. Trespass is taking security in another's dwelling which does not belong to you. And coercion is taking another's free will which does not belong to you. So as you can see, every wrongdoing comes down to an act of theft. Okay, there is no such thing as a victimless crime. If there is no wrongdoing that results in harming another sentient being, there is no crime. These are lies that they tell us to keep us in a perpetual state of being overpowered, and we get used to it. So like, let's say it's 2:00 in the morning. You're coming back from taking your child to the ER, and there's a red light and there's no one in sight. Absolutely no one, no cars, it's dead. And you run it. Is that a crime? No, because it did not result in harming another being. But we have been led to believe that it's a crime. And if you got pulled over by a police officer, you would probably just yield to that. So, natural law transgressions. There is no such thing as the delegation of a wrong. In other words, if a specific action is not a right for any individual, then the action cannot be delegated, granted, or licensed to any other individual or group and magically be called a right. And the opposite is true. If something is wrong, then it cannot, in the same token, if something is right, if it's your right, it cannot be delegated as a wrong. So that action remains forever a wrong under natural law. No one can say to someone else, you may harm him, and have it be unchallenged or unaccosted. It doesn't work like that in natural law. This is not allowed morally any more than anyone can say that a group of people may commit a wrongdoing and they have the moral right to do it. There is no such thing as that. Like, no one can force someone else to wear a mask. No one has the right to not be sick. We are not guaranteed immortality. That is not a right under natural law. In fact, it is the opposite. In natural law, we all know that by creation, we will one day die. We are not immortal. And in the same way that someone cannot say you may harm him or give that permission to a group of people, that's like BLM. BLM doesn't have the right to go out and destroy other people's property and harm them because they feel like they have a right to do it. They can't do that, not under natural law. Okay, so natural law and man's law. Natural law is based upon principles and truth which are inherent to creation. Man's law is based upon dogmatic beliefs, which are constructs of the mind. Natural law is harmonized with because of knowledge and understanding. Man's law it's complied with because of fear of punishment. Natural law is universal, exists and applies anywhere in the universe, regardless of location. Man's law differs with location based upon the whim of legislatures or the legislators. Natural law is eternal and immutable, exists and apply as long as the universe exists and cannot be changed. Man's law changes with time based on the whims of legislators. So we have natural law versus man's law. If a man-made law falls in line with natural law, it follows logically that it is in harmony with creation because it is a truth that is inherent, pre-existing, eternal, and self-evident. If a man-made law is in opposition with natural law, it follows logically that it is false, incorrect, and immoral, harmful. In other words, it is wrong. Therefore, it cannot be legitimately binding upon anyone. And guess what? We live in a constitutional republic, at least we're supposed to. So this applies. This applies to us. No one can force us to do something that is in opposition to natural law. law. Our behaviors need to be in compliance only with natural law. When we understand our self-worth and our place in the universe, we naturally repel all that is wrong. As we engage in moral behavior, we gain a more free society. Can you see the agenda now? Can you see why they're destroying the family unit? Why they're destroying something as simple as man and woman? Why they're trying to infiltrate the minds of our children? This is why. Because moral behavior leads to a more free society. If we are engaged in immoral behavior, we gain a society that is enslaved. That is the natural law of liberty. There is a law that governs the liberty of a society. As morality increases, liberty increases. When morality declines, liberty declines. And I want to take a moment to say, liberty is where morality and freedom meet. Freedom means you have the freedom to do whatever you want without any consequences, usually. You are free to go across the street and, take your neighbor's dog or, whatever. The only thing that stops a good person or a sane person from doing something that is morally wrong are morals. So liberty is where morality and freedom meet. Okay. Finally, sovereignty, here we go. So let's take it to the origins of the word. The word sovereign is derived from the Latin adverb super or super, right? In classical Latin, there is no letter V. If you saw letter V, it was actually the U sound. That is why two V's make a W. There is no phonetic V sound in classical Latin. The phonetic variation that we express as V or the sound V in English, in Latin was represented by a P or a B. In sovereign, we see sover, but it was pronounced in Latin as super or super. What does super mean? It means above or beyond. A superman is one that is above or beyond an ordinary man. So the Latin noun regnum comprises the second part of the etymological root of this word. So regnum comes from rex or regis, which means king. So regnum is the king's rulership. Regnum means his reign. That's where the word reign comes from in English, from regnum. So regnum means rulership or externally imposing control. Not control in the context of self-control, like I'm going to control my emotions or I'm going to control my behavior. No, it means I'm going to control you externally by imposing my will over your will through threats or force. So let's put them together. Super, regnum, sovereign. It means above or beyond externally imposed rulership or control by another. So sovereign means not a subject to another being, not to anyone, not even one that considers himself a king. And it means not a slave to someone who considers themselves your master. Not a slave. That's what sovereign means, not a slave. So what is slavery? Slavery is a claim of ownership on your person, the product of your labor or your possessions, in whole or in part. All natural rights are property rights. And in my longer presentation, I would go into what that means, but we don't have time for that right now. So understanding this is fundamental to understanding the condition of slavery. We all own ourselves and have the right to live freely and exercise our natural rights, provided that the actions we perform do not infringe upon another person's rights. So we cannot harm someone else. Anyone who tries to stop people from living within these natural rights is making a direct claim of ownership upon others, which is the definition of slavery. Those who do this or condone this are tyrants and should be treated as such. So here's the great news. Every single person is a sovereign. There never has been, there never will be any such thing as legitimacy to slavery. Slavery is an illegitimate concept. None of us are slaves. The condition of slavery has been imposed upon people. It has been, but it has never been and never will be legitimate. There is no legitimacy to the rightful rulership of another human being through directly imposing control through coercion. It doesn't exist. And that's a big part of what natural law is about. It does not matter whether you believe it or not, because it's an eternal truth that you are a sovereign and can never be a non-sovereign. There is no such thing as someone else's rulership or ownership over you or your children or your property. A sovereign is a monarch. Mon means one, and archon means ruler. We need to have the rulership within and get rid of the rulership without. We need to set aside the notion that anyone or anything can have a claim over us or our children. A sovereign is a monarch, which means a single ruler who rules only the kingdom of thyself. Sovereignty is a state in which one controls one's own thoughts, emotions, and actions. You can't control anyone else, but you can control yourself. And by bringing them into unity or contradictions or non-duality, you can't serve two masters, right? Attains mastery over one's own consciousness. Sovereignty can be considered the equivalent of true self-control, true mastery, true self-love, or true self-ownership. And it's actually all of these things. The only definition that you need to remember, if you forget everything else, this is one thing that I want you to take from this entire presentation. Guess what it is? You're not a slave. You are not a slave. So if we enter into a state of society, do we lose our sovereignty? No. No, 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 no. The thing that we call government was created with one purpose and one purpose alone: to protect our natural rights. It was created by the people to serve the people. We created for ourselves a servant to guard our individual natural rights and to adjudicate those that wrong others. Any man or woman who decides to serve the people, we the people, in a role within this service are bound by the law that created their role. They cannot self-expand their roles. They cannot turn your rights into a privilege unless you allow them to. And this is going on. People are allowing it to happen because they are ignorant of their self-worth. They're ignorant of the hierarchy of this republic, which is the creator, then we the people, then the people created the states, and then the states enter into a compact, a union, and created the federal government. But things are upside down. We have people thinking that the servant government is now the master. They think that the federal government's on top, maybe it's the states later. We the people are non-existent, and poor God is somewhere down there. Like, we don't even acknowledge that he exists, or if you want to call him creator or creation or natural, it's all upside down. So we are endowed by our creator. Does that sound familiar? The founders believed in a natural law that says that liberty is a gift from God, that our rights were inherent in our creation as independent, sovereign beings that answer to one divine creator. This is evident in their writings, in their speeches, in the Declaration of Independence, and in the Constitution. Even though some of the founders at times questioned God and at times fell away, they always acknowledged some divine power. And the form of government that we inherited was modeled after the law of nature and of nature's God. This is everywhere. This is in our Declaration of Independence, in our Constitution, and in every state constitution. So real quickly, we don't live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic. This is an entirely different class, and this is part of my 10-hour presentation. Not gonna go through it, but I'm gonna give it to you in a nutshell. The founders hated democracy because that's where the mob rules. That's where people decide that on a whim they could change the natural laws and the meanings of right and wrong. No. John Adams said, remember, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. Our constitutional republic was built to secure the individual liberties of free men and women. That is the sole purpose of government. That's it. So what is a republic? The people hold all the power and delegate powers as we see fit. We, the people, have rights, and we grant the servant government privileges. We can take those privileges away anytime we, the people, have the courage to do so. Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. We call the shots. We're the masters of this operation. Individual rights are protected in a republic. Everyone is sovereign. So, all rights belong to the people. The 9th Amendment asserts as law that all rights belong to the people and that the power originates within the people's rights. Most of what the thing you call government does goes against your natural rights. Your rights are being violated. They aren't even hiding it anymore. They do not have to. Why? Because no one's stopping them. Why? Because the body of the people is ignorant. You cannot tell your servants how to do their job if you do not know what that is. You cannot fix the problem if you do not understand what the problem is. This is why you must continue to learn. There is so much to learn. Seriously, I have so many classes available. And History 101 is one of the ones that will really go into our government, our civics, and the way things unfolded in this constitutional republic. So just remember, you're not a slave. You hold the power. You hold the power, but you need the knowledge to move forward with a proper plan of action that doesn't make matters worse. Steps you can take: continue to educate yourself so that you can educate others. And if you have a little bit of knowledge, it is your moral duty to use that to educate others. Because remember, it is ignorance that will enslave a society. Do not participate in a lie. Conduct yourself in a correct and moral manner. Be right. And do not beg for something that already belongs to you. This feeds wrong and will further enslave you. When you go to the school board and you say, please, 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 please take that mask off of my baby. Oh my goodness. The only person who could take a mask off your child is you. You put your kid on the school bus and send them off every morning. Baby, I'm sorry you can't breathe. God bless you. Here's your mask. Don't breathe all day. We'll deal with it at the school board meeting. Yeah, whatever. Okay, but put your knowledge, put your knowledge into action in a productive and meaningful way. So educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. Thank you, guys. That is my 10-hour presentation in 30 minutes. I hope 30 minutes.
Oh, that was very good. And, again, it emphasized what we always find out in these episodes is that it comes down to the individual doing something for it to occur. So I'm going to also open this up for your video there.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, why don't we get some Q&A underway? I'm hoping there's a bunch, and I see some hands already. Charles?
Sure. So Yvette, that was a great intro to moral behavior and natural law. Can you give us an example of a problem facing society where you might take a different approach and what that might be?
Yeah. Oh, whoa, that's a whopper. Okay. I might offend a lot of people here. So I stopped lobbying, period. I don't lobby anymore because here's the thing. It's a systemic problem. And without going into these books, Tragedy and Hope, if anyone really wants to know how it all got started, Carol Quigley, what's happening right now has been set into motion decades ago, even centuries. And so where we're at today, this is where we're at. The Republic is gone. And I don't mean to scare people. I say this so that people can wake up. The Republic is gone. We are 3/4 into the global takeover. The people who are sitting in the seats impersonating public servants, they don't work for you. They don't work for me. They work for NGOs, non-governmental organizations. They work in duality. A lot of times, if you go into a rep's website, you will see all the other non-governmental organizations that they actually work for. So here's the thing. When you show up and you try to lobby them or you try to beg and plead with them to do something that they don't have the power to grant you, the powers within you. But if you do this, right, you're showing your ignorance and nothing is going to change because you're not as scary as their boss, the people they work for. And the only thing that will ever change the course of this, it is through a group of people within one locality, like a county, getting together and forming what the founders did, a committee of safety, a committee of correspondence, a committee of restoration is what I'm calling it, and holding these public servants accountable. How? It's easy. Everything that every single person, even good people that are serving in government today, everything that they're doing is unconstitutional. It's unlawful. They may not know that, but it is. And so it's not hard to build a dossier against every single person. You go in, you do the research, you put in your financials, your annual financials. It's called gosh, my lime, a CAFR, and I can't think of what it stands for right now, but it's where they hide all the county finances, and you start digging and you start pulling out every single action or thing that they voted for or against that was against county rules or regulations, state rules or regulations, and the law, the state constitution and the constitution of the republic. That's not hard to do. You start building binders of dossier on each person, and then you take it to the district attorney, and they have no choice but to prosecute. But this is the thing, that takes time. It takes education, and it takes the willingness to dig and to get together and to put egos aside and to really follow through. There's a lot of groups that are serving people with affidavit. That does nothing. So you give them a declaration that you filed in the courtroom, and then what? What do? How are you holding them accountable? How are they gonna face the law? And how are they never gonna do this again? How are you being adjudicated? You're not doing anything with an affidavit. That's why I say that a lot of these sovereignty movements, they're making things worse. They actually are. So that was a mouthful, and I gave it to you in the most simplest form that I could without going into like a whole history with it, but that's my answer to that for now.
And as a follow-up, Jeff, and if someone else has a question, feel free to interrupt. What does the attorney do with the binder that you collect on the politician?
Okay, so normally, especially in Virginia, the grand jury has the right to start an investigation on anyone. So what we're doing is we're cutting the red tape. We're doing their job for them. Here, we already did the research on you. And so the prosecutor is not going to have a choice because there's going to be so much dirt on these people. And you're also going to have dirt on the prosecutor. And this is a lot to explain. It's a very complicated thing trying to explain it simply, but they're basically going to take it to the grand jury and they're going to go after these people for everything that they're worth.
Interesting to watch that underway. Yeah, we do have a question, Charles. I'm going to let you delay for a minute. Alexander?
Yeah. So I have a question about, she said a lot of the freedom movement is hurting, like the sovereignty movement is hurting people. Is that included in like the Anna von Ritz people and stuff like that? Or have you ever heard of Freedom School? I think it's Texas or something.
So Anna is brilliant. She really is. She is absolutely brilliant and she knows a lot. She doesn't have the answer. You cannot, here's the thing. They will never allow you to shadow them. You can never create a shadow government. People don't understand how dangerous the powers that be are. Absolutely dangerous. They're not just gonna let you raise up your own sheriff, raise up your own court system, raise up your own, like, that's not gonna happen. That's not realistic. And even if you did that, there's still people out there ushering in the global takeover. So what happens with those people? They're still not adjudicated. They're still not being stopped. Natural law states that what's set into motion is going to keep occurring. So you can't just ignore that these people are destroying the de facto system even that we live in, because the republic is gone, but even the semblance of it in the de facto system, that's being destroyed too. So, I mean, you know, she's brilliant, but the plan is not.
Right. Do you believe in like the right to travel stuff?
Yes and no. Here's the thing. When you enter into a state of society, you get to pick and choose what you want to follow or not follow. Because remember, it's by the consent of the governed. So I personally have not done that route. Why? Because I still have very, very young children. And I don't want to be used as an example for something that really doesn't affect me all that much right now. You know, I've never gotten into a car accident. I've never gotten a ticket. So there's no need for me. If that's something someone else wants to do, then I applaud them for that. And I advise that they absolutely learn true law inside out, because if not, they will use you as an example to stop other people from doing what you're doing.
Real quick, Yvette, what
Yeah.
about your site, libertyjustice.info? Is that a resource for people to get started with, or where would you start to send people other than that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have an entire tab called the Committees of Restoration, and they can get more information on starting to repair their local government in that form.
Is there anybody doing what you're doing that's sort of like on your team in different states that somebody can just go right to a little bit of someone that's already kind of got it underway?
Yeah, absolutely. We have committees of restoration in the state of Washington, in Ohio, in California. A lot of them are in their infancy stages, but they're doing spectacular. Like, they've already sworn in their entire committee, and they're already starting to build their dossier, and they've already had their meetings with their sheriffs. So absolutely, yes.
Excellent. All right, let's see some other questions. Charles, I think you had one other one real quick. I kind of cut you off there.
Well, I was just gonna see if there have been any efforts yet with the grand juries or attorneys, and what the result of those have been, or is that sort of the next step?
No, everyone right now is in very infancy stage. They're just doing their research and putting these things together. And you would be shocked at how hard it is to get 25 committed people who want to do this. We started, for example, Virginia Beach started a committee of restoration. And even with two fantastic leaders, they just didn't want to put in the work. Let's serve people with affidavits. Let's go arrest them. You know, let's do a citizen's arrest. You know, they just want instant gratification. And, you know, they started out with a good group of people, maybe like 35, and then got down to like 4 committed people. So it's not as easy as it sounds because people don't want to invest the time in doing it.
When you said 25 people, is that kind of like the magic number you need in the state to make us work?
Yeah, that's kind of the magic number. When I said I did a lot of boring research and was studying the minutes to certain meetings, I put together the committee of safety handbook. I call it the committee of restoration because that's where we're at today. But in order to put that handbook together, I had to be as historically accurate as possible. And that was the number the founders used. And I figured if it's not broken, no need to fix it.
There you go. Jim, I see your hand.
Hey, thanks. And thank you for the great presentation and the work you're doing. God knows we need it.
Thank you, Jim.
Can you hear me okay? I guess so.
Yes.
So I've been involved also in the health freedom movement for a long time. And now I'm part of these different groups, running from Peggy Halls to Freedom Cell to et cetera, Unlock Maryland, Reopen Maryland, and so forth. And there are, I mean, we now have hundreds of people really in our group, and with the connected with the, for example, the anti-mandate rally we had in Annapolis against the vaccines the other day. So maybe we could, I'm thinking if there's a good way, what do you recommend? I mean, could we, if I got 25 people together, could we set up a Zoom with you or do something to get us started?
Absolutely.
I'd rather not have to go out and beat these people up, but whatever it takes.
Absolutely. We can do that. Charles has my cell phone number, so feel free to grab that from him. But
Okay.
if you want to contact me via email, it would be contact@YvetteBronx.org.
Okay. Okay. Hey,
Contact.
contact the Yvette Bronx-Sovereign. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We're actually kind of closing in on a little end of the show here already, believe it or not. That's how fast it was. And you're right, it was about, how long did it take you to learn all this stuff? How many years have you been digging this trench?
It's been evolutionary baby steps, but I would say deep diving the last 7 years.
Yeah, so there you go. So I think you did pretty good in 30 minutes. I mean, in an hour. So there you go.
Thank you.
But what would you kind of leave us as a parting shot? I mean, it sounds like you're still a little optimistic in spite of the kind of the dismal picture you painted. There is a pathway out of here.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
No, but that's the good thing. I mean, like anything, most people, you're not going to get those 25 people till they think it's really bad. If they think it's okay only, all right, you know what? Keep going, Yvette. We love you. You're great. I'll send you
Right.
$10. But if it's bad, then there's something going, you know what? I got to get off the couch now too. So it seems like that's where we're kind of at that point, but yet there is a way out of here.
Right. I see a small window. Like I said, we're 3/4 into the way of the global takeover, but we're not completely taken over yet. And so we still have that quarter to go. And during that time, we can absolutely restore local government. And let's just say, let me play doomsday lady here. Let's just say at worst case scenario, we can't restore, right? At the very least, these 25 people, their job is not just restoring local government. They're getting resources together. The Committee of Correspondence served during the Revolutionary War in so many different ways. And these are ways that we can mimic, where we can build gardens together and co-ops and homeschooling our children so they're not exposed to the indoctrination that's going on. So that we have nurses and doctors and vets and holistic practitioners and a variety of people where we can barter services from other counties and we can stay out of the system so that if they bring in the New World Order and we're seeing the vaccination passports and all that, and it seems like we're being squeezed out of every single scenario, it's okay. We're self-sustainable. And there's power in knowledge in numbers and in preparation. So I'm optimistic because I have a fantastic local network. And I know that if I can do it, anyone can do it. Hey, I'm just a girl from the Bronx. I was part of the public school indoctrination. If anyone was meant to be liberal and indoctrinated, it should have been me. And if I can expand my mind and my thinking and absolutely combat everything that was shoved down my throat and create the family and the network that I've created for myself, anyone can do it. It just takes work and time.
You know, the two things typically people want to do in excess and everything else, like binge watching Netflix, but to do something like you're talking about, that's where they fall down. But what you do show, you're living proof that the remnant, as they always refer to it, never does go away.
Absolutely.
All the depression, all the different years, you always read about that little segment that always kept that flame going. So it's great that you're part of that little cohort. It's fantastic. So thanks so much. We appreciate you so much for today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I loved it. And I hope that I sparked enough interest where people will go out and continue to delve deeper.
What a reason for continuing the conversation. Thanks so much.
Bye.